Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today we are going to take a shameless look at this big old batch of hunting knives that I just finished up. That's right, I finished a big old batch of hunting knives right before big game season. That hadn't happened in forever. But as cool as that is, we're going to look at these pretty cool hunting knives, and then we're going to talk about guards and finger protection as it relates to hunting knives. Okay, so first of all, whether you're right or left-handed, whichever hand that you normally use a knife in, so I'm right-handed, so I use a knife the most with my right hand. So that index finger right there, right? I'm going to imagine all the stuff that I like to do with that index finger, right? Okay, now, since we're talking about hunting knives, that includes squeezing the trigger on my hunting rifle or shotgun or pistol or, whatever it is that I'm shooting, reloading that rifle, shooting my bow. I shoot 3-under with a tab, so that's kind of the finger that's in contact with the arrow. Shooting my slingshot, of course, with a slingshot, that first finger just kind of wraps across the top, so it's, not that big a deal. But I also enjoy things like, writing my name. I enjoy typing without that index finger, or if it was, in trouble, it'd be kind of tough to type. Of course, picking my nose, sticking my finger in my ear, reaching into my pocket to grab my car keys, to go somewhere, reaching into my wallet, pulling out the old wallet, to pay for lunch, and then the index finger is the one that reaches in for the money. All kind of stuff that I like to do with that index finger. You guys are probably the same. Now, imagine a big old gash across the face of that index finger, right? Across the pad, across the joint, across, the first joint in there, right? Or maybe on the side, whatever. Big old gash across it. Because I was using a knife and, my hand slipped up and, I keep my knives really sharp and cut that finger really bad, right? So now what do? Now we go to the emergency room. Now we sit in the emergency room for 4 hours, while we wait for somebody to see us. Because I don't know about you, but the last couple of times I took somebody in the emergency room, that's pretty much what happened. You walk in, they say, hey, are you breathing? You're breathing? Great. Are you, going to bleed out in the next, 20 minutes? No? Okay, great. Go sit in that chair over there, fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. Now you can't fill out the paperwork because you can't write. And you sit for 4 hours before, you see a doctor. If you're lucky and you didn't cut any tendons or cut anything major, he stitches you up and sends you on your way. And now you just got to suck it up, and then, life for that finger is just going to suck for the next, 3 or 4 weeks or something like that till it heals up. Now, imagine you are on an elk hunt of a lifetime up in the mountains of Wyoming, which is where I live, where I hunt. You're up there, you're on a mountain, you're 3 miles away from the truck, you just tip over a beautiful 6-point elk. You fill out your tag, and then you go to dress him out, and then, while you're up inside there, while you're elbow deep into an elk, the point of your knife catches a rib, or, the part of the spine or whatever, and your finger slips up over the top of that knife. Let's pick one without a guard here. No, that's not real. Oh. Yeah, well, something that just doesn't have, there we go. Something that just doesn't have a whole lot of finger protection. The point of that knife hits something and boom, slip on over there and cut your finger. Now, all that shit that you just said that you like to do with that index finger, now, there's all that plus the emergency room visit. But now, before you get to the emergency room, now you're 3 miles away from the truck with an elk down, and you still got to finish dressing out the elk. So you take a bandage or a piece of your t-shirt and some duct tape, because you got to carry duct tape. Wrap your finger up, and now with the rest of your fingers, you finish dressing out the elk, and get the first load on your pack frame, and then get back to the truck. Well, you still can't go to the emergency room because you still got half an elk laying up on the mountainside. So you got to go back up, get that elk, however many trips it takes, get back to the truck, go home, hang the elk up, put your gear away, and then go to the emergency room and then spend the 4 hours there, right? Now, All of that because you didn't have adequate finger protection on your knife. Okay. Now, by the way, that is best case if if you're holding the knife like this. Okay. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when I'm making that opening cut on an elk, well, elk, deer, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Pretty much you cut the throat, and then you go ahead and you open up the body cavity so that you can get the innards out, so that things can start cooling down. I don't know about you guys, but I don't typically make that cut like this. I make that cut like this, okay? So I take, I make an opening incision in the belly, okay? Then I slip 2 fingers inside the body cavity underneath the stomach muscles. Then I turn that knife upside down, put the point in between my fingers so that I know where it's at, and then that way I can hold the innards in while I pull up on the stomach muscles, and then run the knife up. Right. Well, what happens if you misjudge and you hit the point of the sternum? Right there on the blade. Now that whole hand could be having a whole bunch of grief. Okay, so that right there is the reason why I put guards on hunting knives, all right? Now, these guards are not your typical run-of-the-mill guards that you'll see on factory knives, okay? The majority of the guards that I've seen on factory knives, like let's say this buck, for example, let's pick on this buck for a little while. Yes, there is a guard there, right? And it's certainly better than nothing. And this one is an older buck, and it's really not too bad as far as rounded off and everything. I've seen some that were just awful. I mean, they were basically a 1/16 inch piece of steel or brass, and they pretty much put it on there. They didn't round the corners off, nothing, right? So that right there is actually not so bad. The other ones, they're really rough. So these are really, really nice guards, okay? They are a single guard, not a double guard, because I find that a double guard isn't really needed on a hunting knife. I don't need anything for my thumb to rest against there. But where my index finger hits this, there are no sharp corners at all, okay? And it's shaped to fit my index finger or a little bit above in case you're wearing gloves. Or a little bit bigger in case you're wearing gloves. And it's curved down so that it catches, okay? So as long as that finger is anywhere close to there, that guard is going to hit it and guide it back to the handle, all right? Now, it's also comfortable, okay, because if it's not comfortable, you're not going to use it. Now, that guard is also big enough to cover the entire finger, right? First of all, it gives that entire finger a nice, good, solid spot to sit. But then also, like I said, when I'm making that opening cut on a deer or an elk, that guard is that long enough to where it'll catch the web of my hand, okay? See there? So now when I wrap that around, that point can hit pretty much whatever it wants to, and ain't nothing gonna happen. I mean, I'm hitting that pretty dang hard. That point was going almost 1/4 inch into that wood, and nothing happened, okay? My hand didn't slip, and I wasn't having to hold it all that tight either because that is stopping. Your hand can't get up and get on that edge. Okay, so that's kind of the big deal on the safety thing with the guard. Okay, it's one of those things that a lot of folks say that a guard can get in the way. It can kind of get in the way sometimes if you're not used to working with it, or if you're one of those guys that uses your hunting knife for a lot of food prep. And in that case, that guard can hit the cutting board. Honestly, once you get used to a knife with a guard, it's really not much of an issue. You just learn how to work around the thing, and then, you start appreciating it for what it does for you. And namely, that is keeping your fingies whole. As far as the guard getting in the way, like I said, this is predominantly on a hunting type knife, all right? We're not making a paring knife here. You can certainly pare, but that guard would get in the way for paring type cuts. And we're not talking about a chef's knife where you're spending all day long on a cutting board. This is a hunting knife, right? So this knife's job is to be your companion as from the second you leave the truck until the second you get back to the truck, get home, get your animal hung up, and get your gear stowed. Okay? So anything and everything that can happen in that entire trip, that knife is responsible for. Okay? So if you end up having to, you fall in a creek and you need to, start a fire to get warmed and dried back up so that you can keep hunting, that knife's going to be the one that's going to do it for you, unless you're carrying, an axe or a larger knife on your pack or something. Hopefully, if you're lucky and you get an elk or a deer or whatever, that knife's going to be the animal or the knife that's going to dress it out, break it down into pieces that are small enough to hike it back to the truck. That's the type of knife that that we're designing here, not a paring knife or a chef's knife. Let's see. Here's the other thing about guards, okay? Guards really help you when everything else isn't, okay? So, a knife like something like this, that has no guard on it, right? You could use a knife like that for decades and never get into a bind with it, okay? If you predominantly hunt when the weather's nice, okay, so you're not freezing or shaking or hypothermic or anything like that, or if you're always hunting flat ground, or you're never more than a couple of 100 yards from the truck or an ATV, if you always have cell phone service, if you always hunt when you're fresh, all those things, accidents are much, much less likely to happen, okay? But you design a hunting knife around the unthought ofs, okay? You design that hunting knife so that when you are on the side of a mountain with that 6-point elk on the ground, and you're 3 miles from the truck, and it's cold, there's 2 foot of snow on the ground, you're beat just from getting out there, much less having to dress this thing out and then getting it back to the truck. Maybe the lighting isn't all that great. Maybe it's, you've got a blizzard coming in. You can't really see. You can't feel your hands. That's the time where that guard really, really shines. All right. Another benefit to the guard is your sheath construction. Okay. Now, nobody hates or nobody likes losing a knife, right? If you've got a guard, making a leather sheath where you really aren't likely to lose that knife is a whole lot easier. You can make a sheath with a strap where the strap will go over and then snap to the face of the sheath to hold the guard in place. Those I've found the snaps, if they do get snapped properly, sometimes they'll brush will unsnap them. So what I like to do is I like to make these pouch style sheaths. There is a cam built into the welt right in here, okay? And what that cam does is it grabs a hold of that guard. So pretty much you make a knife with a guard, and then the guard is what bases, the sheath is built around that guard, okay? So, and it's really tough to see this. I should have, let's see. We'll draw one right quick. Okay, so this is kind of what the inside of that sheath is going to look like, right? Here's your guard. Here's the welt, okay? So that guard fits up against that welt and it can't go any deeper into the sheath. This portion right here is your cam, okay? That guard has got to rise up, or the guard pushes that cam out of the way, and then as soon as the guard seats, that cam springs back up and it locks the knife in place. So with a knife with a guard and a cam like that, you can shake that knife all day long. You can fall off of a mountainside, roll down that mountain, you know, make a dozen or so bounces, and that knife will not ever come out of that sheath until you want it. Okay? This is, you might be able to see down in there. I kind of doubt it, but if you can or if you can't, well, you can kind of use your imagination. But you can hear that cam lock. Okay? So we get the knife going. It gets a little bit tight. And then you see where it went in and kind of came down. There's also sometimes there's a click when you hear that go down. So now, like I said, that knife cannot push out the end of the sheath, and it can't come out until you're ready for it. Okay? One of the best designs of a sheath I've ever seen. And this one, Ed Fowler taught me how to make sheaths. Mine are a little bit different than his, but the cam in there, you know, he's who taught me how to do that. Now let's look at some hunting knives. This is a pretty nice lineup this time. They've all got the, you know, the clean dyed leather sheaths with the cams and the 3 rivets in the back so you can't cut through the stitching. I think one of these is an order. These are all made out of 52-100. They're all differentially hardened, and so, you know, the edges are you know, 61, 62, somewhere around there. The centers will be springy and the backs will be, you know, fairly soft. We've got ringed gidgee with wrought iron guard. Same on this one, some desert ironwood, some Cadillacs, Bacote. These two, I decided to do something a little bit different. So, I mean, I like Purple Heart because it's a nice oily wood that's very stable and it's very pretty, but it's, you know, it's purple, and that's kind of its big claim to fame. It doesn't have any figure or anything like that, so even though it's a really cool wood and very well suited to knife handles, it's a little on the plain side once you get past the purpleness. So I went ahead and torched it, and I think it came out really, really nice. I don't know, in the little bitty screen it looks kind of dark, but and it actually came out, like I said, really nice. I'm going to end up torching some more Purple Heart. And then I did the same thing with this Osage Orange, which Osage Orange is kind of in the same boat. It's very strong. It's not as oily as Purple Heart, but I mean, they build bows out of it. I mean, it's in the same class as like hickory. So it's a very strong wood, and it's orange, so that's cool, but that's kind of where its attractiveness ends. But that torching, I think, gave it a little bit of extra character, and I really kind of like that. We've got some Cocobolo here that this piece has been sitting up on the shelf for a while, and it had that sapwood on it. And, you know, I thought one of these days I'm going to make a knife to go, you know, for that one, and that's just the one that turned out. We got a nice piece of Bolivian rosewood here. Bolivian rosewood's still one of my favorites. Some desert ironwood and nickel silver for the guard, I think. And then this one is a very cool order here. This one is, I don't do very many mustard finishes, but that's how I do a mustard finish there. It's a very cool look with a blued mild steel guard and pin, and the customer supplied the handle material. So I'm not really sure what it is. I think it's some sort of a rosewood. But that finish is pretty cool. This one right here is my current hunting knife. It's got the Mokame Gane guard on it. Kind of makes a little cross up underneath there. And then that's just magic marker. I was making a pattern and used magic marker for that and haven't cleaned it off. This is my old hunting knife, the one that's on the thumbnail. That's 52-100 and Bolivian rosewood with a long ricasso for choking up on it. That one was my hunting knife for about 7 years or so. We've got a lot of hunts together. And then that one right there is a kind of a small game, kind of a, you know, everyday carry type knife with the guard on it. So anyway, that's the video. Pretty much, I wanted to you know, talk a little bit about guards on hunting knives, why they're important, why you should really consider having one on your hunting knife. Like I said, if you're one of those guys that never makes it more than, you know, 100 yards away from your truck, and you're always in really nice weather, and, you know, you always sleep in and you have plenty of rest and you got plenty of coffee, and, you know, your mind is not ever, you know, not on the task at hand, and, you know, everything is always, you know, perfect and controlled and all that kind of stuff, you know, then by all means, you know, use a knife that doesn't have adequate finger protection, because more than likely, you know, you're never going to need it. If you're like the rest of us who hunt the mountains, who hunt without cell phone reception, sometimes we can get a little ways away from the truck. Sometimes, you know, you're hiking through snow. You know, sometimes a blizzard comes. You know, you might go out and it's nice and dry and there's no snow on the ground. And then when you come back, you know, there's a foot of snow on the ground and you're trudging through all that. You know, for us mere mortals, you know, guards are a very, very good idea. They'll save you at least, you know, a stay in the emergency room, and, you know, a hefty stitches bill from the doctor. And they just, you know, give you that peace of mind. I mean, nobody likes cutting themselves, but cutting yourself when you're out there in the hills hunting, sometimes that can be, you know, really not such a good thing, and a guard can really help you out with that. Anyway, so again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the little chat about guards and seeing some pretty knives, and we will see you next time.